So we're out here on Bud Kid or Bob Kid Lake in Prairie Grove. And today I wanted to talk about how fly fishing helped me become an okay bass fisherman. So, I started this YouTube channel once I got into spin reel or bait cast fishing because for the past 10 years, I've been a fly fisherman and I got a kayak. I don't know, probably 9 months ago. The Jackson Yupik, which if you watch that video, you'll see I've now upgraded to a Bonafide SS127. But I got that kayak because I was fly fishing, and then I got into bait casting or spin reel casting, and some of the things that I've learned in just a short amount of time of bass fishing have really spawned from fly fishing for so long. So I want to talk about those. So the first thing that I've learned, match the hatch. So it seems that in recent years, bass fishermen have really kind of taken that term in ways of saying, oh, well, if you know that they're eating crawdads on your leg, match the hatch, or if they're chasing gizzard shad, match the hatch, or it's this like new age term of bass fishermen. But fly fishing guys have been talking about that for years, and it really spawns from taking a seine net and seeing what's in the river before you start fishing. And so if they're eating midges, throw a midge. If they're eating sow bugs, throw a sow bug. Or if you've got like a big shad kill that's coming through the dam, throw a streamer. But bass fishing has kind of taken that on, and that really helped me when I started, doing bait casting. So if I know in a lake, if I get to the ramp and I look around and I see a bunch of gizzard shad up on the bank, well, I'm going to throw something that looks like a gizzard shad. If I'm in a creek and every time that I step somewhere, it looks like, crawdads just skittering everywhere, I'm going to throw a crawdad. So match the hatch really helped me think about when I was bass fishing, what am I going to throw? The next thing is color. So fly fishing guys don't throw uh, much in the way of like bright colors. Some guys do, they'll throw yellows and, out of pinks and stuff like that. But for the most part, natural colors is what you throw. And a lot of that has to do with water clarity, or maybe, you switch out flies quite often. But when I, started buying my tackle, I did not want to get into the idea uh, that I need to throw a bunch of bright colors. That's just not the case. Throw natural, occasionally throw in your black and blue, maybe just black, and then, white chartreuse, because a fish sees chartreuse not in the same way that we see it. It's just a brighter white. So if you throw chartreuse and white, you've got like, a typical shad color, which is a little bit gray on top with a white belly. Well, if you do chartreuse on top and a white belly, it's the same thing. So think about your colors. Don't get into the thought that I've got to have these big, vibrant, unnatural looking colors. Try things that look natural. A fish lives in water. And sure, are there curious fish? Absolutely. But do I think that the biggest fish are going to chase some off the wall lure that the fisherman, thought looked cool? No, not really. I think you try to stick with natural types of things. Uh, the next thing, you don't have to spend a mortgage on all of your stuff. So everything within the fishing industry, not everything, but a lot of things are there just to catch the fisherman. We need to have the squeakiest chatterbait, or we need to have this new worm that has rattles and bells and all the things. No, man, it's to catch you. You don't have to buy the $700 rod. If it fits in your budget, fine, but that's not going to make you a better fisherman. Being on the water will make you a better fisherman. I'm not wonderful. I I, I, I don't claim to be. I'm not going out catching 9 pounders every time you come out. But the more time you spend on the water, that's what makes you a better fisherman. Not not all the gear. Everything in the gear world just makes your life a little easier. Do you need the Shimano Curado DC? It helps, I'm sure. But hey, man, go spend more money on, I don't know, filling out your tackle box, or instead of buying one reel and one rod, buy two. So you're not, if you backlash, you can, hey, switch on to the next thing. Don't worry about spending a ton of money. And I learned that through fly fishing, mainly because, fly fishing's got a bunch of old dudes and they are all about, saving a dollar. And I listened to them so long. Um, you don't have to spend as much money as the next guy. The next thing would be reading water. So, fly fishing is namely a river fish. So you want to think about, trout. If you're fly fishing for trout, trout can be in a riffle and they'll be at the tail outs. So you got to think about, where's the conveyor belt of food? Where can I go and ambush, especially brown trout? You want to think like a fish. Where would I be if I were lazy and hungry? Well, I would probably be in ambush areas where stuff can come to me. So when I come to a lake, I typically think, and this is not new, but I'm just reiterating the point. Where are wind-blown points? Which way has the wind been blowing? Right now, we've had a southern wind, so I would assume that the north shore of the lake is going to have more food on it, just because my bait and everything has been blown up in there. The same thing happens when you're fishing a lake and we talk about ledge fishing. Well, a lot of those are river channels. You want to find the drop offs and the points that, you know, if a bass is kind of, sitting still, it can ambush shad or, you know, a, something that's roaming by. So think about reading water, and as a fly fishing uh, fisherman, I spend a lot of time reading water. And the same thing translates to lake fishing. Spend time looking at your maps. And if you don't have a fish finder, I don't have maps on my kayak, but there's Active Captain you can look at, there's Sea Maps you can look at, there's Omnia Fishing. There's a few different places that you can find maps of lakes around you. Man, spend some time looking at deep points, or maybe not deep points, but ledges, or holes that you found. Spend time reading the water. That really helped me when I started uh, bass fishing. The next thing I think about is, you don't have to set the hook like you're on the MLF. Okay, I think a bunch of that stuff is for show. And I know in fly fishing, you, um, you talk about the trout set. Well, and you're throwing size 20 or 14 size hooks. And in bass fishing, you are throwing 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0, whatever size you want to throw. A lot of these fish aren't tarpon. They don't have a bunch of bone in their mouth. You can get a good hook set by just a good sharp move of the rod. You don't have to jerk the damn thing out of their mouth. So I don't think that everything has to be a show when you're bass fishing. A good solid hook set is going to catch a fish. Matter of fact, when you're fly fishing for, the saltwater species, you do more of a strip set. So you're going to try and pull and move along. So, you're not having to just hammer these things. And even when you're fly fishing for bass and you use a size 2 hook or even a little bit bigger, you're not having to, try to rip the lips off of a fish. So don't make it about a show. Get a good hook set and you'll catch your fish. Are you going to lose fish? Absolutely. Does anybody catch 100% of their fish? Absolutely not. I've been out here today. I've had a couple of misses, but for the most part, you're going to catch the fish. So don't worry about the big reel and jerk the damn thing. I think a lot of that looks good on YouTube, but if you look back at the, the uh, dancing lessons with Bill Dance on YouTube. You know, those guys are throwing those worm rods with the little pistol grips, and you know they're setting the hook hard, but they're not, you know, ripping sideways trying to get the thing. So, you know, reasonable size hook sets, you can do it. And then finally, the last thing that I learned fly fishing as it translates to bass fishing, man, just go out and have fun. Nobody is more elite. No way of fishing is better. Are there instances where bait casting is is a better, um, I guess, a better way of fishing? Sure, if you're trying to get down deep, it's really hard to get a fly down below that, I would say, 8 foot mark. And 8 feet, man, you'd have to be way down there. So, you know, I think each style of fishing has its place. If I'm looking to make a, you know, something driftless, if I'm trout fishing and I, you know, want to take a dry fly and let that thing look like an insect, absolutely, that's great. Can I do the same thing with, I don't know, a piece of foam on a spin reel? It'd be a little challenging because I can't cast it. Um, but I've seen guys at like Roaring River, you know, just blow it out of the water with some power bait, and some guys fly fishing throwing midges up there. No way of fishing is better. No way is more elite than the other. I think they both translate and they both help you in various ways. So, in closing, I think fly fishing helped me in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of those things translate to bass fishing. And I'm glad I started off fly fishing because you think more about presentation, you think about stealth, you think about reading water. And man, just keep the elitism out of your head and just go out and have fun. Fishing is supposed to be fun, and some folks do it, you know, tournament wise, they want to win. Some folks do it because, man, it's just a ton of fun. So get out there, have a good day on the water, enjoy it, and let me know down in the comments if you think that fly fishing or bait casting is better, and maybe why. You know, I'm curious to hear if anything in this video sparked an idea, or maybe I'm totally off base. I'd love to hear your opinion. So drop it down in the comments, and we'll see you next time.